We are filming. We're on page, did I say 31? Page 31. Paradox. So we're going back a little bit. This is from reading 20. But a paradox is a statement that doesn't make sense on the surface. This is a literary term that we're going to see on the state test. We'll also run into it a lot when we get to Romeo and Juliet. So we just want to be sure that we know what a paradox is. But it's a statement that doesn't make sense on the surface, but points to a complex truth. So essentially, a paradox is complicated. What are you missing? A pencil? Do you want a new one?
You could possibly learn with someone being instructed.
Maybe.
Or cut that out.
Oh no. They can wait. So, authors use paradoxes when they want to make a statement. So this first example that we have, this is an example of a paradox from Emily Dickinson. She's a poet. You've probably read some of her stuff. But what's the contradiction here? I am nobody. Can you be nobody?
Yes.
No. In theory, you are somebody, right? So the contradiction on the surface level is you can't be nobody. And yet some of you said, yes, you can be. What's the deeper truth behind that?
Not nobody.
You might feel like you're nobody. You might feel like you're no one important. So the deeper truth here is that she feels like a nobody. And I bet that some of us would say at some point we have felt like a nobody, even though you are definitely valued and important.
I'm only valued because I do the dishwasher.
So we've got a contradiction that points to a deeper truth. This second one is from Shakespeare, because I know you love Shakespeare. But he says, I must be cruel to be kind. This is from the play Hamlet. What's the contradiction? I must be cruel to be kind.
You can't be cruel in time.
You good. Cruelty is not equal to kindness. But what's the deeper truth here? What is he saying?
He had to hurt somebody to help somebody.
He had to hurt someone to help someone. Good, Warren. So we might call this tough love, right? You've probably heard that term before.
That's fourth block.
Fourth block?
Every day.
Your football? Who in our story, who is an example of tough love? Who uses tough love? Rosa for sure. We know that she loves Liesel. We know she loves Liesel, but at first we weren't sure because she was just so mean all the time. Last one. It's an anonymous saying, but it says, truth is honey, which is bitter. What's the contradiction? Is honey supposed to be bitter?
The truth? No, this supposed to be sweet.
Honey is supposed to be sweet, but is the truth always sweet?
No.
No. Have you ever had someone tell you a truth and you're like, I do not like that. I know it's true,
Bittersweet.
but I do not like that. Bittersweet would be a good word for it. Yes, Nicholas?
Pretty sure in Fallout 2 there was a gravestone that it was the last words of the person who died, and
Mm-hmm.
it said too much information when he was talking to the doctor.
Ah, good point. Sometimes too much information, even if it's true, we're like, this is not good. It's not sweet. And so the deeper truth is that the truth hurts sometimes. Even though I think most of us would say, like, truth is important, it's valuable, sometimes that doesn't make it good. Now, we're going to talk about oxymorons later in our English class. You've probably heard them before. We'll see them a lot in Shakespeare. But the thing about a paradox is that it's not an oxymoron. A paradox is a statement or a group of sentences that contradicts what we know while telling a truth. An oxymoron is two words that contradict each other. The best example of an oxymoron that a lot of people remember is jumbo shrimp. Because what does jumbo mean?
Big.
And what does shrimp mean? Small.
No.
So we've got this oxymoron, jumbo shrimp. Oxymoron is 2 words. Paradox is a sentence or a group of sentences. Now, we've got this passage from the book Thief that contains a paradox. It says, "For hours she sat with him as she shivered and slept. 'Don't die,' she whispered. 'Please, Max, just don't die.' He was the second snowman to be melting away before her eyes. Only this one was different. It was a paradox. The colder he became, the more he melted." So Liesel remarks on the paradox, but what's the contradiction?
That melting and cold. Melting is dying.
Melting is dying. We have lots of experience with melting. Usually, the colder you get, the more you freeze, not melt. So our contradiction is cold is not equal to melting. But this is from a part of the book when Max is very, very sick and they're not sure if he's going to live or not. So what does she mean by this? What is the truth behind the colder he became, the more he melted?
It seems like the colder it got, the more you died.
The sicker he gets, he's getting cold because he's getting sick. The sicker he gets, the more he disappears. So we have our paradox.
Disappear.
Well, not actually disappears. This is not a Disney movie,
It's like closer to death.
but the closer to death. Good. Now, you're going to do the next sheet, or the back side of this sheet, on your own. There are a couple of examples of paradoxes, but some are not paradoxes. So I want you to read through those sentences, and then you decide, is it a paradox or not a paradox? There is a discussion question at the bottom of the page. You don't have to do that. We're just going to do page 32 and submit.